All right, today's lesson, I figured we'd go back to our screen that you're used to seeing at the beginning of class. So our objective, students will be able to find the missing angles using law of sines. So we're going to use the same formula from yesterday, but instead of finding sides, we're going to be finding angles. So thinking back to trig with our SOHCAHTOA, remember every time we found missing angles, we used inverse trig functions. It's going to be the same thing today, but specifically we're working with sines. So it's going to be inverse sine as your last step for every problem you do. So just a review. Yesterday, we looked at our law of sines. Sine of big A over little a equals sine of big B over little b equals sine of big C over little c. Capital letters standing for angles, lowercase letters in the denominator here standing for sides. So let's just look at one example from your homework. This is worksheet number 1, problem number 2. So our first step was to label your sides based on the angles they were opposite from. So opposite of angle C, side C, opposite of angle B, side B, opposite angle A, side A. Notice I'm using the lowercase letters to represent those sides. So the first ratio you write is based on the letter you have both values for. So we know angle B is 24. We know side B is 13. So that's going to be our first ratio. Sine of the angle, so sine of 24 all over the side length of 13 equals. We're trying to solve for angle A, so that's going to be our second ratio. So sine of, this time we're missing the angle, so the capital letter is our unknown, and we know the side. Little a is 12. So that's our setup. Next step, same as yesterday, proportions, so cross multiply. 12 times sine of 24 equals 13 times the sine of A. Next step, the same. We're going to divide, starting to get A alone. So we're going to divide just by the 13 today, not by 13 sine. That cancels out. So we've got sine of A equals 12 times sine of 24 over 13. We still need to get rid of this sine. So remember how we canceled out sine in our equations with SOHCAHTOA was we did the inverse of that. So we're going to take the inverse sine of each side. So we're going to do inverse sine of sine of A. Inverse sine cancels out regular sine. And then on this side, it's going to be hard to squeeze in, so I'm just going to write it below. Inverse sine of 12 sine of 24 all over 13 is going to equal A. So what you're going to need to plug into the calculator is what I'm about to highlight, basically that whole left side. This is what you're plugging in. The one thing to be careful about when you're plugging it in is to close the parenthesis around the 24. And when you do plug that all in, you should get an answer of, rounded to the nearest tenth, 22.1. We're finding angles, so all your units of measurement are going to be degrees. Final answer. If you're having trouble plugging that into your calculator, take a picture of what you're plugging in or a quick video of it, email me, message me on Remind, and I can get back to you on what you're doing wrong. So homework for today, that worksheet number 1, law of sines, the even problems. You should have done the odds yesterday, so 2, 4, 6, 8. Tutoring, you can email Mr. Shaw or I, or Miss Matos is available as well. So feel free to reach out. Thanks.